Today is officially one for the history books in Miami and other parts of South Florida. That's because for only the second time in recorded history and the first time in over 84 years, Miami has reached 100 degrees. In over 130 years of data, the only other time that Miami hit exactly 100 degrees was in July 1942, aka the middle of World War II. Now, there's a good chance that may actually come as a surprise because you would think that the threshold would be much higher in a state that's known for being hot. I'm meteorologist Andrew Markowitz, and in this video, we're going to explain exactly why this record was broken and why it's significant. The biggest reason is we have a massive and intense area of high pressure that is covering most of the southeast, and that is why it has been so hot and humid lately. Based on the positioning of the high, that means that the flow over the state of Florida is actually coming from the northwest, and that wind direction is extremely important. This forecast sounding from the morning run of a high resolution model, I think, tells the story very well. Now, if you don't understand what it means, essentially it's showing different weather variables at various levels of the atmosphere. The thing you need to pay attention to is the gap between the red line, which is the air temperature, and the green line, which is the dew point. Notice there's a pretty wide gap between those two lines. That is indicative of dry air at all levels of the atmosphere, which mixes all the way down to the surface. When you have dry air at all layers of the atmosphere, that means you have more radiation coming from the sun, and that means that the ground is able to heat up more efficiently. In fact, we can see right here that precipitable water values, p-watts, are far below normal, like more than 2 sigma below average, which indicates an unusually dry atmosphere. It wasn't just Miami. Much of the southeast coast of Florida, including Fort Lauderdale, West Palm Beach, Boca, among others, all surged into the upper 90s and challenged if not exceeded daily records. So now for part 2, let's talk about why it's so hard for Miami to get 100 when northern cities do it all the time. The simple answer is geography, and there are two key features driving it. The first is the proximity to the Tropic of Cancer, especially the farther south you get, as well as the fact that they're surrounded by two large bodies of water, the Atlantic and the Gulf. As you make your way down to the tropics, there is more moisture present in the atmosphere, which means that it's more humid, but also caps the afternoon highs. That's why the closer you get to the equator, the less seasonality you experience. So that's why temperatures year-round are more or less very similar. You also get a sea breeze, which cools temperatures down to an extent and also can produce thunderstorms. But in today's setup, onshore flow lasted for longer than we typically see, and that meant the temperatures were able to rise for longer than a normal day. Now, is there actually a material difference between 100 and 98 or 96? Honestly, not really, but what matters more is the humidity. And actually, it could be argued that with the reduced humidity, it actually was not the most uncomfortable day you've experienced. Either way, this is pretty fascinating stuff, but the good news is temperatures will be gradually coming back down to normal through the end of the week.